Welcome to the People of the Way podcast, where we talk to interesting people who follow Jesus Christ about how it impacts their daily lives. I'm your host, Reverend Ngozi Yvette Robinson. I'm an ordained Baptist minister and founder of the People of the Way Ministries, an online community of believers who are in love with God, or even just in like with God, and I'm blessed to be with you. I have with me today the wonderful Yvette Walker, and I met her on the Clubhouse audio social media app, where we are in a room together for writing prompts called Morning Muse. We'll get to write together. And I am honored to have her. It doesn't take long. It seems that somehow the Christians find each other, whether we're in a group, of that name or not. We can't help but out ourselves by some of our talk and the way we walk our walk. So I found out that she was a believer and she had a podcast, which kept encouraging me. Come on, you have this idea, get it out. And finally, I am doing that now. And so I definitely wanted to interview you and find out more about you, Yvette, and your walk with the Lord. So please, Yvette, introduce yourself. Anything you want the audience to know.
Okay, well, first of all, congratulations. Congratulations on, making that decision and going forward. And I want to say that because you are so encouraging with the rest of us, especially in writing and other things that we talk about in our room. So, I want to encourage you because you're doing the thing. So good for you. So, my name is Yvette, and I am host of the Positively Joy podcast. And that is a podcast that takes a look at really seeking what joy is and the real joy, God's joy, the joy he tells us about in scripture, the joy he tells us about in particular in John 15, where we need to obey him. And in that, we will find true joy, the Father's joy that will make us complete and full. So a lot of times when we think about joy, we just think about being happy. But in my life, I have been happy, but not completely fulfilled. And I always wondered why. And even though I've been a believer, I was a baptized Catholic, been a believer all my life, been a Christian all my life. And so just wondered, why am I not fulfilled? Why am I always seeking, something else? And so I thought it was really interesting to explore. And also because he told me to talk about that. So the origin of the podcast is, of course, we were all home during the pandemic, many of us. I know that there were essential workers that had to go, and I thank them, but many of us were home. And I'd always wanted to start a podcast, and there was always something keeping me from it. Oh, it's too confusing. I work in a building where there is a podcast studio. Oh, I don't understand it. Why is it so complicated? There was always something that was just keeping me from doing it. And I have my computer, I have some editing software. So I just decided I was just going to start. And I was going to do a podcast on what I like to call the intersection of politics, beauty, and hair, because I love talking about hair, all different kinds of hair. Hair is so different. And I still think that's a great topic. And either I will do it someday or somebody else will do it. And God told me, oh, that sounds good. But no, you are going to do a podcast on joy. And without a whole lot of direction past that. And I said, okay.
Don't you just love it when God does that?
Yes, I know it. And he will do that. But the funny thing is, and this is why I really, really know that he told me to do this, is the name of the podcast. Because as you know, we're both, well, I don't know. I know I'm a bit of a grammar nerd, and I'm assuming you are too. We both know that positively joy is not grammatically correct. And I would never have named that myself. It's positively joyful.
Exactly.
But that's not what he said. And so I said, okay, Lord, so we're going to do it. And, it has been well received. Either people don't know it's not, grammatically correct, or they don't care. But that is what he told me to name it. And that's what I named it. And we have been going for, we just passed our year. Which we actually didn't celebrate, because as we were doing that, we're also going into season 3. And I celebrated the 3rd season, probably a little bit more than the year. And it's been great. It's a combination solo host show, but mostly guests. I mostly have guests on the show. I probably feel more comfortable interviewing than I do even teaching or talking myself. But it's been great. Had some great guests on the show. You can find it all at positivelyjoy.com. So that's me, and that's what I've been doing.
Wonderful. And now you are award winning because you just got a wonderful award.
I did, from the Spark Media Conference, the Spark Media Collective. At the conference, there were some great awards. I won Best Podcast Interview, which is true to me. I love talking to people. I love to interview, and so that made sense to me. I didn't know if I was going to win. I was hopeful, but it was a nice surprise.
Wonderful. So I am so curious, how would you describe your relationship with God right now? What does it look like? What does it feel like?
Well, I'm going to say seeking, but not in a way that I don't know him, because I feel like I do know him now much more than I have known him, through all the years of my life. Because as I said, I've been a Christian for years. But I think the seeking part now is even seeking more. I know that he is there. I know that the joy he gives us will complete us. And I want even more. I mean, I want to be Mary, not Martha. I want to be sitting at his feet, oblivious to anything else, in ecstasy, with the Father. That's what I'm seeking. Sometimes I tend to be more like Martha, trying to get stuff done and all of that. So that's, I'm going to say,
people got to eat,
I know. And Martha's not a bad guy. She's not, but I think I've been Martha most of my life, and I want to be Mary now.
Wow. That's so interesting. So you say you know him a lot more than you did in the past. How did you come to this greater knowledge of God?
Well, it's really been a great and an interesting ride. Lots of different pieces of it, but I think I'll tell you the piece that has to do with what occupied most of my time, and that was my career. So I have been a journalist, until a few years ago, and I still consider myself a journalist. I have since moved into academia, but I've been a journalist for over 30 years. Went to college for journalism, got out of college. First job was a reporter, reported for a couple of years, then moved into copy editing at newspapers, because this was kind of pre-digital. Then after copy editing for a few years, moved into management, where I'm working with reporters and helping them shape their stories, and did that for a long time. As a journalist, and it's interesting to watch this next generation to see what they do, but as a journalist in my generation, if you were a journalist, you were a journalist first. You put your journalism hat on before your background, before your gender, before your color. You're a journalist, you're a journalist. That's how I grew up. I realize that is not the journalism of today, but it was the traditional established journalism. The idea that we need to be completely objective and find information for our audience because they need to know. And is basically a service organization. And a lot of people, I don't think, look at it like that. I like the idea of a servant leader. That's how I have tried to live. I mean, even before I feel like I have this richer relationship, servant leader is what I've always felt like I wanted to do and what I was. So here we were, I'm interviewing people, writing stories, or I'm editing stories, whatever. But because we were supposed to be objective people, I never talked about politics. I never talked about, a lot of things. And I certainly did not put my Christianity on my sleeve. And in fact, I thought that it would be inappropriate to wear my Christianity on my sleeve because I was in charge of the front page. I was making decisions that affected the front page of the paper. That was important. I wanted to make sure that nobody could argue that I had an agenda of some kind or a bent of some kind. And I thought that was important in what I should do. At the same time, I'm going to church, my entire life, love Jesus, the whole deal, but I never really spoke out about it. I never tried to build the kingdom publicly. I mean, maybe not even privately. I mean, I know I always went to church and I encouraged people around me to go with me, you know, but I feel like I was never really building the kingdom, anything like that. So then in 2006, I have an opportunity to come work at a newspaper in Oklahoma City. And I wanted to come, I was in Kansas City at the time. I wanted to come because they were doing great things in digital. They were doing, in my opinion at the time, they were doing things that for a media organization of their size were better than the bigs, than the New York Times and the Washington Post. I thought they were doing really great things in this burgeoning digital world that we found ourselves in. So I went to Oklahoma City. And then I got to Oklahoma and everybody seemed like they were talking about their faith. It just seemed that way, you know. There's like church on every corner in Oklahoma, you know, that what you would expect when you hear about Oklahoma. The funniest thing was the very first weekend I got there, and I had started working, and I said, okay, I'm going to go to church on Sunday, right? So I need to find a church. And there was a church right around the street from my house. And I didn't know anybody. No one invited me to go to church with them, which is actually a little surprising for Oklahoma, but I had just gotten here. So I go in and I'm looking at the bulletin and I see that the sermon is going to be held, going to be given by a man named Robbie Trammell. Now, at this new job, I had a colleague, a Robbie Trammell, and I think to myself, oh, wow, that must be a pretty common name here in Oklahoma, because again, I don't know. And when Robbie Trammell walks up to participate in the service and gives the sermon, I mean, you could have knocked me over. It was the journalist that I was working with. And in a way I thought to myself, how can that be? How can you be a hard news journalist and, you know, be a deacon? Or at the time, I don't think he was a deacon, but he was, you know, yeah, actually he might've been a deacon. So it just kind of freaked me out. So I began to be more comfortable with just being myself, being a Christian, you know, here, and still a journalist. So that was one big change. So, but that's good. I'm still, you know, still loving Jesus and all of that, but I still was feeling that I was not hearing from God. I felt like that had been closed in a way. When I was a little girl, and my preacher just told me today, just said this in the message today, that when he thinks about moments where he felt closest to Christ in his past, he goes back to his teenage years. And it's the same with me. I went to Catholic elementary school and high school, and I felt the same with me, that in those early years, I felt closer. I felt like I could hear from him. And as I got older and into the world, it seemed like that went away. So I had the opportunity, and this was in 2019, I had the opportunity to go to a retreat by the singer-songwriter Rita Springer. And people were listening to this. Some of you will know her and some of you won't, but she's a great singer-songwriter. And she had just came to my church, and I loved her message. I just fell in love with this person. And I had to know everything about her. And I found out that she had a week-long worship retreat, but really it was for worship ministers or creatives. And I kept looking at it, and I kept looking at it. And I said, you know, I'm not sure this is for me. I'm not a worship leader. I don't sing. I don't play music. But I am a writer. I am creative. So maybe, so I kind of kept going back and forth. I applied and got in. Yay. And I spent the rest of the few months leading up to this trying to talk her out of taking me. Telling her, I don't think I'm the one, or are you sure this is for me? You know, I'm not sure. I don't want to waste your time. I mean, really, I kept emailing her, and she's finally said, Yvette, God told me you need to be here, so you just come. Okay, so I come, and I have a really great experience. Just, you know, and I hadn't really taken a retreat like this since I was in high school. A retreat like this to connect back to God. So I felt like I had a breakthrough there. It was just it was everything I thought it was going to be. It was wonderful. It's called Dive, D-I-V-E. At the time it was in Texas. Now she's running it out of Nashville. I encourage anyone who is maybe interested in that to go, even if you're not a worship leader. But that's really who it's who it's tier 2. But anyway, I felt like I had a breakthrough when I came back from that. Lots of stuff started happening. I didn't start the podcast until a year later, but lots of stuff started happening. I started writing Christian music, lyrics. I'm not musical, but I started writing songs, and without the music, I guess they're poems. I didn't know what to do with them. God just kept giving me these words. I'd never written a song before. She taught that during this retreat because, again, it was for musical people. And so she taught some ideas about how to write a song and what you're looking for in a Christian song, but I'd never done it. But he just kept giving me these things. And so I wrote a whole bunch of songs, like, I don't know, maybe 20. And of course, not all of them are great.
Wow.
But they were there. And then I didn't know what to do with them. So then I said, okay, well, I'd love to collaborate with someone who's musical. Maybe we can work together. There seemed to be some roadblocks. So they just sat around for about a year. And then the pandemic happened. And then I started the podcast, which he most definitely gave to me. And then after that, though, this year in 2021, he has been giving me connections. I've been working with other songwriters, some musical, some not. There's a guy I'm working with pretty regularly. He is a lyricist just like I am, but we write songs together and give them to other musicians to put music to. So there's actually some movement on the music front now, which had stopped before. I'm right for a while, especially when I first started the podcast, I stopped writing the songs because I didn't know what to do with them. But now I'm writing more music, writing more songs. And so, we'll see. I don't know if ever anybody will hear it on the radio, but I would love to write a song that somebody could use in church or just somebody could hear and encourage. There's a couple that are out now to have some music put to. Maybe I'll play them on the podcast. We'll see. But again, a lot of stuff has happened quickly, certainly since 2006 when I moved to Oklahoma and felt like I could be the real me, the Christian Yvette. And then also since I came back from the retreat, where at the time I think I surrendered and I said, Lord, I just want to be closer to you. I want to hear you again. And he doesn't speak real loud to me, but he does speak to me occasionally. And that just gives me so much joy.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I can't wait to hear one of your songs either. It will certainly encourage somebody, be the water to their seed or the planting of their seed. You never know. That's how God uses us.
Exactly. And that's how I want to be used.
So since 2006, so we say that would be the spark that sort of led you to a higher level of your faith. Has there been anything that has sort of shaken your faith, or any episode or event where you're like, wow, do I really believe or not? God, where are you?
So there's never been anything that's shaken my faith to the level that I would stop believing. But there certainly were some difficulties along the way. I am married to a really wonderful, godly man now, but I did have a first marriage that did not survive the fact that my ex-husband was bipolar, and I didn't know that when I married him, and that was very difficult. And we were together for 13 years, but we divorced in 2003. So coming to Oklahoma for the new job was also kind of, like maybe kind of a new life type of situation. I think there's a movie or an expression anyway called the marrying type. I like being married. I like having a partner, So to myself, I thought that there might be somebody else out there for me. And I had a kind of a long-term dating relationship that ended in 2008, and it was devastating. So now I was in Oklahoma, right? And we had been dating for a while, and it ended, and I was really, really devastated because I thought that this was going to be the one. Silly me, because for some reason, and my ex-husband included, I seemed to attract either atheists or agnostics, certainly not Christians,
Mm-hmm.
And I think like some women, we can feel like, oh, I can fix that person, right? I mean, I think a lot, right? So, but I'm clearly a believer. So why do I seem to be attracting people who don't share my faith? And so after the relationship ended in 2008, I felt that I was going to be alone the rest of my life and was very upset. And there was one night where I was just crying. I just couldn't get to sleep. I was so upset because I just thought I was going to be alone. And then I was listening to K-Love, and the Matthew West song came on, and I I should really remember this title, but it's the one where he basically says that God made the stars and the sun, but he loves us more. I love you more, maybe is the name of it. And I heard that kind of in my grief, and it told me that I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of not being loved. And
Mm,
that is, of course, ridiculous because I am loved. He loves me.
yes.
And I immediately stopped crying, was able to get to sleep. The next day felt great. Like I was ready to move on. I decided at that time to stop dating and to try to build my relationship with him until he told me it was ready time to start dating again. So that was probably a year and a half. Yeah, about a year and a half. And then I felt like it was okay to start dating. I don't think he said, okay, start dating again, but I just felt in my spirit that it was okay maybe to seek someone. And the third person that I dated is my husband today, a godly man, and his past and relationship with the Lord has encouraged me a lot. We both go to an evangelical Christian church now. Uh, I went to Catholic church before, and to be honest, I will go to Episcopal church. I'll go to any church you want me to go because it's God to me. Um, but as a Catholic, I felt not very comfortable praying out loud.
Mm,
I didn't feel confident in doing things like that. And even though now I'm in Oklahoma, I can express myself publicly, but I didn't feel like I was capable or equipped to do that. But
mm-hmm.
then when I got married and every time we would say grace or whatever, he would encourage me to pray out loud, which was very uncomfortable at first, but he really encouraged me to do that and little things like that. So in my marriage with him and the people that we found at our church here in Norman, Oklahoma, I've been very, very encouraged and have taken on new roles. I'm a lay pastor at that church right now. I'm involved in a lot of areas of serving, and sometimes that calls for me to pray with people out loud or join the rally where I'm kind of letting people know what we're going to do for the day and things like that. I am not a shy person. I'm an extrovert. But when it came to speaking and teaching in some way about God, I felt like I had imposter syndrome, and I've always felt like that. And it's interesting because now as a podcaster, on the shows where I am talking to people, I'm completely in my element. But on the shows where I challenge myself to teach or have a message, I still feel that way. It's something that I'm still overcoming. And I have
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity to talk to women at a breakfast in a couple of weeks, and I'm not scared. I'm looking forward to that challenge. I want to get more comfortable speaking about Jesus in front of people. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. You said you would describe yourself now as a seeker, but sort of a higher level seeker. What are you seeking exactly now?
Mhm. I am seeking even more than I have now. I'm seeking the moment where, and it has happened, but I'm seeking those moments where I can fully give myself to him, where I'm really oblivious of anything else going on, and I'm fully giving myself to him, and he's in my spirit, and I'm feeling it, and I'm also hearing him, hearing his voice. Um, I
Your
don't know.
Mary moments or your
Yes,
Martha moments. Yeah.
the Mary moments, yeah. And and I know people who speak in tongues. I don't speak in tongue. Um, I don't know if that'll ever happen to me, and I'm not saying that I necessarily have to have that, but I am seeking those moments more and more where he can completely be in me. And that's what I want. I have a bad habit of, busy brain where I just, everything's going around me, and I'll sit down to have some quiet time with him. And then other things will pop into my head. I'm actually going to do an episode both in the Clubhouse room and on the podcast in a couple of weeks on something called centering prayer.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah. And I did an episode with the gentleman for the podcast, and I thought that was really interesting. And I'm actually hoping to do that in the Clubhouse room. But I think that might be something that I should try, because that takes into account that you are going to have these moments where the world pops in, and it happens too much for me. And so I want to push the world back out and focus on my time with the Lord.
Sounds wonderful. So it sounds like you've had these various stages that have all pushed you higher to your next level of relationship with God. What would you, if you could go back in time, and you are still you, so it's not like you have the hand of God to just stick it in their mind, but something that you could hear back then, what would you tell your earlier self?
That is hard. One of the things that I feel, one of the things that I feel, I guess, bad about is the fact that I couldn't make my first marriage work. I feel, for a long time, I felt that I said the words, I made the commitment, I made the vows, and that was important. Then over time, and I did an episode with a young lady who herself has bipolar, and she's working with her husband to make it work. And I told her, I applaud you, because it's difficult for really anybody who has a partner with a with a personality disorder of some kind. But if we hadn't gotten divorced, would I have met the partner now that I truly felt was God sent? So I don't know if saying something to myself at that time would have made a difference. I know I felt sad and guilty about wanting to leave that marriage. But after I left the marriage, and this is not we're not talking about, this isn't a show about, dependency or whatever, but I felt like, I was creating a dependent relationship with him, allowing him to engage in some behavior that if he had to do it on his own 2 feet, he wouldn't do. So I don't know. It's basically, to answer your question, I'm not sure if I could have told my younger self anything, except to maybe understand, and I will say this, to understand that the answer was in Christ. So no matter what was going to happen at that time, the answer would be in Christ. And I don't think that I sought Christ during that time. I think that I was young and frustrated and was trying to make it work on my own. So that's probably what I would say. And I don't know if that would have meant the marriage would have continued or not, because I really do think God has had a path for me recently. So I don't know, but I think that anytime anyone has had some ups and downs or some situations, the answer is always in Christ. And I think that back then I was not looking at it that way.
Amen. That's very humble of you to say. I'm not sure what I would have listened to and been able to hear when I was my younger self. So you call this a voyage, and God has been opening up a path for you. What do you think is the next stage of your path, the next rung of the ladder for your spiritual journey?
Well, I think the next rung definitely is to be more of a speaker. And, I think that could take place in any number of ways. As I said, I have an opportunity to speak to some women at a breakfast in a couple of weeks. I'm really excited about that, to share my story. The podcast will continue. I'm also thinking about a book that's based on, that's based on experience. And I don't feel like my life is any more important than anybody else's, but I think that there might be lessons there for people. So thinking about that, and maybe this music will go somewhere. We'll have to see. I know I have a lot of fun writing them, and I know that God gave me these words and these lyrics, especially in the beginning, because I had never done this before. So now I'm actually, kind of studying music now and seeing how things work. But I still think he gives me those the essence of the messages that I in turn into a song. But yeah, I mean, and sometimes I'll just be in the car and the words will come so fast I have to get my recorder out and just because I'm going to lose them by the time I get home. So that's God. I mean, that's not me.
I'm so curious. Could you share some lyrics with us? I would love to hear them.
Well, absolutely. Let's see. The one I'm working on now.
And does a melody come with them for you, or just purely the words?
So the funny thing is no, the melody used to never come. I feel like it's kind of working its way in there now. Okay, I don't want to give you one that I'm actually in the process of working with someone on now. Okay, I'm gonna give you one that I would love to put music to, but it's challenging, and I haven't found anyone to work with me on this yet. But it's called "Armor of Prayer," and it's one of my favorite songs that he has given me. I would love to hear music put to it at some point, and it's my copyrighted work, but we just haven't turned it into a song yet. So it's called "Armor of Prayer," and it starts this way: "No shield, no sword, just the smooth stones of your words. I sing to the heavens, I sling with holy reverence. I fight for you through praise and supplication. Protected by your grace, I will not lose this race. This is my armor of prayer against a world coming for me. I need no habit or care, spirit of love surround me. Overmatched, like a David fighting a Goliath, a 10-ton giant defying your armies. But your servant beats this boastful Philistine. With the words you send, my devotion never ends." And then you repeat the chorus: "This is my armor of prayer against the world coming for me. I need no habit or care, spirit of love surround me." And then the bridge, which is the last part of the song, like in worship songs, there's that, like, it culminates in this great bridge that you like repeat over and over again and to like get swept up in. So the bridge is: "Enemies may come against me, but I come in the name of the Lord Almighty. Enemies may come against me, but I sing in the name of the Lord Almighty. Enemies may come against me, but I shout in the name of the Lord Almighty." And then you do the chorus again and you fade.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
I would love to put that to music. I liked that because I love the ideas of, I love David fighting Goliath, of course. And I love the idea that he didn't have all these tools or these weapons, but he had a sling. And I love saying that his word can be a weapon, just the smooth stones of your words. I sing to the heaven, I sling with holy reverence. So we'll see. We'll see. That's one he gave me. That's one he gave me very early on.
Wow.
Like in 2019.
I can't remember the last time I've had an idea like, oh, I got to get this down before I forget. So that is wonderful that you have that level of creativity from God in your daily life.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen every day, but it did happen just the other day. I was sitting at the parking lot. I mean, not in the parking lot, at the stoplight, and I had been thinking about a song, and I was like, oh, I wonder what it would be like if we said this. And all of a sudden, like, they just started coming. And I grabbed my phone and I just start recording. And then I come home, and I certainly will work on it, and some things change and things like that. And then when I work with someone, then we always do work together and we collaborate. Some more things will change, but yeah, that's fun. That's fun when that happens.
Did you ever imagine you'd be in the songwriting business? Was this ever a dream of yours?
No, not really. And certainly I'm not in the business yet, but no. I mean, when I was a little girl, I wrote poetry like all little girls do, but I never thought about that as, actually being something that I would do.
So, sounds wonderful. What are you asking God for as you try to approach this next phase? And what do you need from people? What are you calling out to the universe for?
That that I'll find great collaborators to work with, and like I said, he's been opening those doors where for a couple of years they were closed because I didn't know who to talk to. So number one, for some great collaborators who get inspired by the words, because I have something, but I need to inspire uh, a musician or another songwriter that will see something in the song and will want to work on it with me, right? So that, and then trying to get it to once we have a complete song, trying to get it to the right people who might see it and like it and want to do something with it.
All right, you've heard her. Answer the call of the Lord, people. If any of you has the connections that she needs, please be in touch. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So I'm curious what your prayer life looks like these days. You have so much of God talking to you, it feels like, through your lyrics and guidance on your podcast. How do you talk to God?
Hmm. So I should talk to him more, just like everybody. I never do it enough. I go to bed listening to a devotion every night that I'm able to kind of focus on, and during that time I pray. I pray throughout the day. I pray for my own needs, and I pray for others. I have a Facebook community, Positively Joy Facebook community, where I encourage people to give their needs, and I certainly pray for them throughout the day. But you know, just like wanting to be Mary, I need to continue to find those little moments when I completely set aside to do that. And I think there'll be some weeks, and I'm not perfect. There'll be some weeks that I do it a lot more. I do have that daily bedtime thing, so that's a commitment. There are times when I during the day I'm able to sit down, and I do it more some weeks than others. But so I would say it's a little sporadic. The daily bedtime thing is a commitment. Other than that, sometimes I'll get up in the morning, and always, I won't say always, most of the time, I get up in the morning and recognize that this is a new day and God is in it. But spending, like, say 30 minutes aside or an hour aside to spending time with him, I don't do that enough. And I know that's important. So that's something that I keep reminding myself of. But he is with me, like you say, he is with me a lot throughout. But that's one more thing that I can do. I can set aside some time. Um, and I tell you what, I know a lot of people set aside first thing in the morning. I am not a morning person. So
I hear
I'm
you.
just not. And it's a miracle that I've been able to commit to our clubhouse room every morning at 7 Central. That's not normal for me. So yeah, just I need to build more time in that in, but I will.
That's wonderful. Well, you certainly have been such a blessing to me in you and Judy Ann creating the Morning Muse group and resparking my creativity and letting me write about things that weren't the novel that I was trying to get out, but just to be able to be creative for the sake of being creative. So it
Mhm.
makes perfect sense to me that God is reaching out to you to do song lyrics. That really tracks well with the you I've experienced in our Morning Muse group. And so I pray that God will continue to bless you with this wonderful creativity and allow it to come to fruition and be a blessing to someone else.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank you for being a part of our other clubhouse room, the House of Joy, Fridays at 4 p.m. Central, where we talk about just really many aspects of joy, of what that is. And I thank you for coming on that ride and being a co-moderator. So thank you for that.
Wonderful. I am happy to. I'm happy to help. In many ways, for me, Clubhouse has been nothing but a blessing. I know people get up to other things in those Clubhouse streets, but for me, it's been all good. So I can only count it all joy.
Yes.
Did we touch on everything? Is there anything else you feel like we need to cover?
Well, I just want to provide resources, and, maybe those songs at one point will become resources, but I do have a resource called 5 Ways to Choose Joy, things to change, look at in your life and change. Easy, I don't want to say easy fixes, but really easy ways to think about making the choice of God's joy. It's a free resource that you can go to my website and download. So just go to positivelyjoy.com and download that. I hope that will bless you, as well as just, checking out the podcast and the blog. The blog, I do have a blog that tends to be related to what I do in the podcast, but sometimes it's different. So you can check that out too.
And it's all on positivelyjoy.com?
Absolutely.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I just thank you so much for coming in for this interview. It's always a joy to me to understand more about people's individual walk with the Lord, because it's always the same, but always really unique and different. So I love that. I love that component of it, that we're serving the same God, but God is so dynamic that we serve and we connect in different ways. So it's great to hear how you serve and connect.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, and God bless you and keep you.